So, welcome everyone to today's session, This or That, When to Choose Between Dynamics and Power Apps. My name is Patrick Johns. I will be hosting the session today. I work with the partner sales team at SureWeb. So I just want to let you all know that we do work with a team of Dynamics 365 certified experts. So if you have any questions about the Power Apps or Dynamics throughout the session, please know that we're always here to help partners grow, whether that be leveraging us for support, for pre-sales, marketing, you name it. We want to be an extension of your team. We're here every step of the way. So without further ado, we're going to introduce today's guests. Today, we're joined by Brian Begley, the founder of nCloud9, and Rez Camis, who is the co-founder and VP of technology at CryoSpark. So good afternoon to both of you guys.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, excellent. So we'll start off with Brian. If you don't mind, just introducing yourself and giving a quick word about nCloud9.
Sure. I'm the founder of nCloud9. We're a Microsoft Gold partner based here in Omaha, Nebraska. And we focus specifically on building Dynamics 365 sales, customer service, and marketing solutions for businesses throughout North America.
Excellent. Awesome. And Rez, go ahead.
Awesome. Really nice to be here. My name is Rez Camis. Everybody calls me Rez. I am VP Technology at CryoSpark, where we build solutions on the Microsoft 365 platform. We have the hybrid office where we focus on helping organizations run remotely. We've got our process transformation, which is why we're here talking about Power Apps and Dynamics today. So we specialize mostly on the Power App side of the equation, the Power Platform, and then we have the Secure Cloud where we do security, identity, and device management on Microsoft 365. Very nice to be here.
Perfect. Excellent. Once again, thank you guys really both for being here today. So I'm going to give a quick overview of what the session is going to look like today. So as the title suggested, this or that, when to choose between Dynamics 365 and Power Apps. We're going to start off by explaining the basics of both. So what makes them similar? What makes them different? And then we're going to give some real world scenarios in the second half of this session. So Brian and Rez are really going to give their opinions, which product is better to use in what scenario. So to get right into it, first question for both of our guests today. Does Dynamics include Power Apps?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. Dynamics 365 is actually, in my mind, it's a superset of the functions that you can get as part of the Power Apps platform. So if you're working within Dynamics 365, you can take advantage of Power Automate, Canvas apps. But what you get with Dynamics is you get pre-built templates for different business functions. In terms of licensing, there's 4 different levels of licensing for Dynamics. The lowest level is a team member. A team member is appropriate if you're going to be just doing light reading, light editing of CRM data, creating reports. Those are usually the scenarios that we recommend a team member have. If, however, and this is the vast majority of users, you need to be using Dynamics 365 daily to manage your sales pipeline or keep an eye on your customer support case, we're going to recommend what's called Dynamics 365 Professional or Dynamics 365 Enterprise licenses. These are what the majority of users who are going to be using Dynamics 365 will have to do their day-to-day work. And if you need further capabilities, including advanced sales forecasting or AI capabilities, there's a new license called Sales Premium that can be purchased. Now, Power App licenses are sold in a different way. Instead of sold based on features, they're sold on either a per app or a per user basis. If you buy your licenses on a per app basis, you would be paying a license fee for every app for each user. Whereas if you purchase them on a per user basis, then you would buy one license and that would cover unlimited applications for that user.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Great breakdown right there. So now coming to the second question of our first part, can you mix Power Apps and Dynamics to make it more cost effective to the customer? So will it cost less on the implementation side?
It won't cost less on the implementation side, but it can help you save money on the licensing side. You can mix and match Power App licenses within a Dynamics 365 environment. However, those users who have a Power App license won't be able to access some of the advanced sales and customer service features like opportunities and case management. So it'd be similar to a Teams license.
Excellent. Very good. Moving along. So what is Dynamics 365 and how is it similar to Power App?
That is a great question. So Dynamics 365, Power Apps, they're both hosted in the Microsoft cloud. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. It means that your IT staff gets to avoid the headaches of managing on-premise servers, making sure that they're updating them, making sure that they're secure, but also available out to your users on the internet. Microsoft takes care of all that for you. So both Power Apps and Dynamics 365 hosted in the Microsoft cloud makes it really easy to start deploying your solutions very quickly. There's no hardware, there's no software that needs to be purchased. And also with Power Apps and Dynamics 365, both of them come with pre-built applications or pre-built templates. So for example, with Power Apps, they have expense management and approval templates. Dynamics 365, we have sales, we have customer service, field service, and other large business functions. The best benefit of using Power Apps and Dynamics 365 to me is increasing your information sharing among employees. So you're removing all those data silos like Excel spreadsheets or Access databases in favor of a shared cloud-based Dataverse application. It's going to give you tremendous productivity and cost savings. Basically, your organization is up to date on all the information by accessing their Dataverse app.
Maybe I'll add a little bit to that.
Sure.
On top of what Brian said for Dataverse, the cool thing about building Power Apps is that it uses that underlying data model of Dynamics, which is Microsoft Dataverse. And if you haven't used Dataverse before, it used to be formerly called the CDS or the Common Data Service, and they renamed it to Microsoft Dataverse, which is a robust cloud-based database, and that's wholly in the cloud, and it simplifies your data management by just using concepts that the regular users knows, like tables and columns and data types and choices, right, in a really easy to use manner. So unlike the old school DBAs, you don't have to worry about indexes or anything like that anymore.
Yes.
That's all taken care of for you on the cloud. And you could use the same capabilities as Dynamics, such as Azure and the Microsoft 365 artificial intelligence and machine learning and all the cognitive services that Microsoft gives you in the Azure cloud. On top of that, you could build these powerful, responsive browser or tablet or mobile friendly applications easily with model driven apps. And these are apps where you build out the tables in Dataverse first. And then all you're doing is dragging and dropping the metadata in your apps within your model driven apps that you're building. And furthermore, you could tie in your apps into the whole entire Microsoft 365 cloud ecosystem by tying into Azure Active Directory for your identity and security aspects like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, device management. And that's all really important from the IT governance side. And with that IT governance side, you get all of those environment management capabilities and app management capabilities. And lastly, you can surface up all of your apps within Microsoft Teams and Outlook and SharePoint and a lot more. So that's some extra stuff you could do.
So now to flip it upside down, how are they different, both of these apps?
Well, I'll start that one here. With Dynamics 365, the biggest benefit for that and how it's different from Power Apps is when you deploy Dynamics 365 sales, you, for example, have leads already pre-built for you. You have your opportunities, and you can build a product catalog all within Dynamics 365. If you were to build that within a Power App, you would have to create each one of those tables and each one of the fields and build all the logic behind the scenes. So with Dynamics 365, you already have that logic, you already have the relationships between the tables, and it makes it much faster to roll out. You could also easily add more advanced functions like marketing, field service, project management, all parts of the Dynamics 365 family, all sharing the Power Apps database, or I'm sorry, the Dataverse database. So, that to me, those are some of the reasons why we would recommend Dynamics 365 over a Power App, depending on what we talk when we talk to the client, what they say they need from us. So the other benefits of Dynamics 365 are the differences between Dynamics 365. It has different integrations. So, for example, if you're looking to do a lot of lead searching on LinkedIn with Dynamics 365, we do have built-in integrations with LinkedIn as well as other services. So, to me, Dynamics 365 is the solution you might recommend when a customer is looking for a very traditional CRM system, and that's not necessarily built specifically for their organization. Rez, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just going to add on to what you said and go a little bit deeper on Power Apps. And there's two types of Power Apps you could build. Model driven, and that's what really Dynamics apps are built on top of. So Microsoft is exposing you, giving you that capabilities, which they built Dynamics on. You could build your own apps with that, right? And then there's a second portion, which is Canvas Power Apps, which are not really in Dynamics out of the box. And with Canvas focused Power Apps, you can create these pixel perfect apps that are focused on either mobile or tablet, or you can make them responsive. But with these Canvas apps, you're able to mash up multiple different data sources into one app easily. And you could have those apps look pretty much exactly the way you want. Whereas Dynamics, you're kind of tied into the interface that are already configured and set up in those apps. There is some functional flexibility there, but you kind of have that look and feel already made for you. And also with Canvas apps, they're low code and really focused on citizen developers and power users. In fact, all of Dynamics and Model and Canvas apps are focused on that because they're already pre-built. But with the Canvas app, it gives you that extra little bit of functionality. And you usually have to build your own Canvas Power Apps, as there aren't many tied into the Dynamic systems out of the box. So you need to build those from scratch yourself and mash up your data sources there.
So thank you, Brian and Rez, for that. I think you guys both did a great job of laying out the similarities and differences between the two products. So now we're going to get into the this or that, where I give you guys real life scenarios and you will jump in and suggest which of the two products we should use. So without further ado, the first scenario. If I worked in finance, where would I build an expense management system for my employees with approvals going to managers and then to us for processing?
I'll take this one on, Brian.
Okay.
I think this would actually be built out a combination of the Power Platform with Power Apps. And you could even build these out, either Canvas Power Apps or model-driven Power Apps. And I've actually built some of both of those for this exact scenario of expense management in both Canvas and model-driven Power Apps. Some of those customers wanted that exact customized experience with a specific feel. And some of them wanted us to follow an exact stage process flow. And both models, either the model driven or the Canvas apps, were able to accomplish that. And we're able to integrate Power Automate into both those for those cloud-based flows and use the Microsoft Teams, the approvals apps, and tie them into their Microsoft Outlook experience.
So, Brian, any to add on that?
No, I agree with what Rez said. The only time I would change this around is if they already had Dynamics 365 implemented. This might be something that we would build on as a custom app within Dynamics 365.
Excellent.
But for the most part, if this was a brand new customer, we'd do it exactly the way Rez discussed it.
So for our second scenario, I want to track sales opportunities and go through the stages of the sales process and have them tied into my Microsoft 365 experience. So whether that be Outlook or Teams, which product would we use for this scenario?
Well, let me take this one on because this is basically the classic Dynamics 365 sales scenario. Within Dynamics 365, we have the ability to track your sales from lead through the opportunity and even through quoting, orders, and invoices. But not only do we have those sales tables, we also have what's called a business process flow. A business process flow allows a sales manager to determine what are the separate steps between each of the 4 stages of a sale. So, for example, what do I want to do in order to qualify a lead? Do I need to have access to power? Do I need to have a budget set by my client, by my prospective client? All of those can be tracked in a business process flow and allows the salesperson and the sales manager to make sure that the sales team is doing their job at the right time, asking the right questions during the sales process. Also within Dynamics 365, we can build dashboards built around that. So you can see your sales pipeline by the stages of the sale. How many opportunities do I have in closing today? What's the dollar value in qualify? So all of that out of the box with Dynamics 365, as well as the integration with all of the other parts of the Microsoft 365 stack, like Teams chat, Teams channels, document storage, and approvals.
And maybe what I'll do is just add on top of that. I definitely think Dynamics is the way to go here, as Brian said. But what we've done for our customers is actually build Power Apps to kind of focus in on a certain element for the sales folks, because sometimes Dynamics, the information you have to fill in for the opportunities and the accounts might be overwhelming, and they just want something really simple, a small Power App that allows them to fill in the customer name or the account name, the opportunity title, and be done with it, right? So we've gone in and kind of done that for a lot of our customers. So I think that's a perfect use case where you should be using Dynamics, but you could always add Power Apps on top of that.
And on top of that, what you just said is you build a Power App like that, and 2 years later, they can migrate that to Dynamics since it's all part of the Dataverse. So as the company grows, they can take your Power App and turn it into the full Dynamics 365 experience.
Excellent. Very solid answer there. So here's another scenario. Right now, I'm tracking all of my employees' vacation requests and approvals in a spreadsheet. Where would I digitize this?
I'll take that one on.
All right.
I've seen this done so many different ways. Honestly, you could do this and you don't even have to use the Power Platform or Power Apps, but I've seen this use Power Apps or just using the Approvals app in Microsoft Teams or SharePoint lists. I've also created full-blown Canvas Power Apps that are backed by SharePoint lists and backed by Microsoft Dataverse. So I don't think Dynamics would probably be a great place to host this unless there's a module in the Dynamics 365 HR that handles this, but you wouldn't go out and purchase the whole Dynamic ecosystem just to build this for this particular use case. Brian, what do you think?
I completely agree. Unless there was a reason, I would build this as a Power App as well.
Excellent. All right. So good answer right there for Power Apps. Here's another interesting scenario. I work for an insurance company, and I want to store large inventories of car accident images. And I want to expose this for a client using an external website. So where would I do this?
I'll take this one on.
Sure.
Take a stab at it. I would honestly use a Power App that is backed by a SharePoint library or list. With your Microsoft 365 subscription, every user gets a terabyte of space, and you get a lot of space for each team or each SharePoint site you create anyway. So why not take advantage of that space? And if you're taking images, they take up a lot of space. So you want to think about those types of constraints that you're dealing with. So I would kind of create the data source in a SharePoint library with all the appropriate metadata that you want to, and columns in SharePoint that you want to add to that data source, and then have it backed by a Power App. You point to that data source in a Canvas app, and it pretty much builds out the app for you. Now, on the public website or the external website side, whenever you're exposing as a public authenticated or a non-authenticated website, you also have this capability within the Power Platform called Power Apps Portals. which is a great offering by Microsoft that can help you with this use case as well, and exposing all of your Dataverse elements, all exposing your lists and libraries to external or guest users.
So moving along to another scenario here. I want to create a complex stage system to manage events, inventories, and assets. So what product would I use for this?
Well, I'll take this one. There's actually two different products. I'll go with the first one first. We're talking about managing events. Microsoft has a application called Dynamics 365 Marketing. You can purchase it as a standalone application, which means you don't need to use Dynamics 365 Sales or Customer Service to use it, or you can purchase it as an add-on to your Dynamics 365 subscription. It includes email marketing, of course, but it also includes event management tools for both in-person and virtual events. And you can use that to manage all facets of an event, including the planning, the invitations, the tracking who has attended. And you can even use tools like Forms Pro or Customer Voice to track survey results for people's responses to the webinars that you give, the virtual events. For the second part of your question, where you're talking about tracking inventories and assets, Dynamics 365 can have customer asset tracking. So we've used that in scenarios where we have clients who sell large machines, for example, to other companies, and then they manage the maintenance of those machines. So we use Dynamics 365 to track those assets by their serial numbers. We also have used Dynamics 365 to create inventory systems for the parts and materials used to keep those machines up to date. So for me, Dynamics 365 Marketing and Field Service would work for both of those scenarios.
Very good scenario for Dynamics there. Awesome. Excellent. Anything to add on that one, Rez?
No, I think Brian got it.
Excellent. All right. So moving on to another one. If I had a need to prompt my employees for information within Teams, what system would I use?
I'll take a stab at that. So you could use a lot of systems and surface up a lot of your Power Platform. So you could surface up Dynamics apps within Teams, but I think for this one, if it's simple information, you could create a Power App, which you add as a tab to a channel. You could add a model-driven app to a channel as well. You could point to a public website if you have your own custom dev tool there. But the other one you could do is pretty a new concept called Dataverse for Teams Power App. That's a Canvas app surfaced within a Microsoft Teams, which is actually free with your Microsoft 365 licensing as long as you have Teams. So that's another quick way to do it. But the way I would choose for this one, if it's just prompting for some information, I would use the Power Automate Flowbot. And in that Flowbot, you're able to surface up this thing called an adaptive card. And if you go to this website called adaptivecards.io, you can see the power of these adaptive cards, and you just prompt the user using a Power Automate Flowbot with that adaptive card to get the information and act upon that information.
So, general question here for the panel. I want to build powerful apps and workflows without spending extra money for licensing. What would we do with that?
Well, I think Rez kind of alluded to the answer to this one in the prior question, is building a Dataverse app within Teams might be the best scenario because it doesn't cost anything extra to license. There's no premium connectors in that scenario. And you can take advantage of Power App tools as well as Power Automate. And I think you can even use the Flowbots within Dataverse within Teams. Is that correct, Rez?
Yeah, that is correct. On top of that, Brian, you could also build a Canvas Power App that's backed by a non-premium data source, because any Dynamics usage is called a premium data source by Microsoft, and even Dataverse itself, you're using that as a premium data source. So you could actually use a non-premium data source like an Excel list or a SharePoint list or a SharePoint library as your data source, and you could build these really powerful Power Apps. Now, I would suggest to do some research on some of the limitations of doing that first, but definitely you could use you could build robust Canvas Power Apps backed by SharePoint lists.
So here's another scenario for you gentlemen. I want to build a pixel perfect user experience or user interface designs pointing to my Dynamics data. So what would I use for this?
I'll take a stab at this one. So I think in this case, it's very similar to the question we asked last time about, where would I build my sales and opportunities and accounts, where we talked about using Dynamics for that one. In that case, where, as an example, a sales or an account executive says that they want to surface up the questions that are prompted to be input within Dynamics in a certain manner, in a certain look and feel, in a certain with X and Y coordinates for the buttons and the text boxes and a specific background design that they want, I would definitely use a Canvas-based Power App in this case, because you get that pixel perfect control within Canvas Power Apps, and you're able to either input the data or call the data from data sources like Dynamics or your Microsoft 365 environment or other data sources as well.
So for our final scenario today, in a small to medium business setting where people have a large scope of responsibilities, so let's say an HR person who's also doing a bit of finance, or a business owner who's doing a bit of sales and marketing, so people wearing multiple hats. But they have budget constraints. Which solutions would be best to help those staff members to save time and gain more focus?
All right, let me work on this one because we actually run into this scenario all the time. We work with a lot of small businesses, small to mid-sized businesses, where the scenario is the owner is also doing sales, the owner is also doing marketing. So one person or two or three people may need to know so many different functions. And so they're not going to be doing just one thing in Dynamics 365. Dynamics 365 has all those functions pre-built in the different templates. So you could use a customer service license, a marketing license, you could license for sales, and you would be able to, from within one application, do all of those functions. Because Dynamics 365 come as templates, they're very quick to roll out, and they also have a consistent user experience. So training is very simple. Once you've learned one area of the application, like sales, for example, it's pretty simple to train people in other areas like customer service and marketing. So because they share that same Dataverse backend, these applications can be rolled out quickly. They can share the same accounts and contact database and customized to their needs and improved over time.
Brian, another great answer. And I'd just like to take this time. Thank you, Brian and Rez, really, for showing up to this session today. I think we learned tons. You guys did a great job of laying out the similarities, the differences, and also by analyzing those scenarios. So putting Dynamics and Power Apps into real life scenarios. So thank you both for being in our session today.
Happy to be here.
Excellent. And before we leave, we didn't discuss licensing in detail today. That was no accident. We are the experts for licensing here at SureWeb. So if you have any questions about licensing or any other topics that were discussed during today's webinar, please reach out to us. We're going to leave our contact information in the description. And another point is that if ever you want to get into the Power Apps game, into the Dynamics game, but you're not sure where to start, here at SureWeb, we have an excellent partner-to-partner program where we could link you with amazing partners such as CryoSpark or nCloud9. So always remember that, the partner-to-partner network. And finally, if you have not signed up for SureWeb's partner program yet, please, once again, check the link in the description. It's 100% fee. There's no commitments, and we will be waiting there for you. Have a great day, and thanks everyone for joining this session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.